Hi, everyone. This is Kathy Mason from MasonWorks Marketing here today on Conscious Business Zone. And I'm so excited to introduce you to Maia Chrystine Nartoomid. And I hope I said it right.
Good.
Pretty close.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, I'm so excited for everyone to meet you. So, Maia is a very, very, very magical being. And she has connections with high level consciousness beings that have worked with her since she was a young girl. And she shares it with us, everyone. So Maya, tell us a little bit. I just wanted to, because I was at your house in Crestone about a year ago, right? Almost, a week and a year ago. And I was just fascinated. I had learned about your work through Engine Choi, who does the crystal skulls with you, and other magic fairies stuff. Engine's amazing, and so
She
that
is.
yes, and Eve. So I love both of them. So anyway, so that's how I heard about you, and I've been like on the fringe, like watching your stuff because it's so uniquely beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So anyway, tell us. Oh, thank you so much. Anyway, tell us about how you got. Well, basically, how you got awake, because you got awake really young, or did you come in awake?
Actually, yeah, I just kind of came in awake because to start at the very beginning, uh, I was born in Venezuela, in Caripito. My parents were there because my father worked for an oil company. And in there. And so I was born in kind of a mystical country, you could say, at least at that time. It was on the edge of the jungle, you know. I remember we'd left when I was 2.5, but I have very vivid memories of it, nevertheless, certain moments in there. And I remember the very first thing I remember was looking up at the ceiling. I was in a crib and I was looking up at the ceiling, and there was a pink elephant lamp on the ceiling. It had been made. It was a little pink elephant. You know, the light shone out the sides of the elephant. And I remember looking over to the curtain, and there were these very thin little, curtains blowing in the breeze. And I thought, why am I not out there? I should be in the breeze. I shouldn't be here. I was like puzzling this, and my eyes were fuzzy. I couldn't see really, really well, like sort of through a lens, like you would a baby's eyes. And my mother told me later that we moved from that house when I think it was 5 months old.
Oh, wow.
So that was my first memory.
And you remember
And
the house from that young? I mean, I don't have any memories from that young.
that's the only thing I remember that young. But I do remember that because I thought, wait a minute, what am I doing in this lump? I should be able to just go in and out of that window in the breeze. It just seems so that I was just sort of puzzled. But I
What
was
is
seeing the pink elephant lamp, and that was only we left that house and left the lamp behind when I was 6 months. We were still in Venezuela, but not in that house. So that was the first, and I just seemed to when I was 7 months old. I made these funny little noises at night, and my mother knew it wasn't a diaper pen or I wanted a bottle. She just instinctively knew because my mother was my light companion, and she instinctively knew to take me outside. And this is at night, in the tropical sky, and I pointed at the heavens and I said star, and I was 7 months old. So, yeah, it really started right away. Right.
this part of the story? But thank you. Cool.
But I like to say I came in as an adult and I started getting younger and younger, and now I'm just a little kid. Because I really was so adult when I was young, and I started getting younger and younger. Now people say, oh, you're just a little girl. So I guess that's what happened. If I stay much longer, I'm going to be in diapers.
No. Oh,
But
don't wish that on yourself too early.
but anyway, so then there were other things, but the other really kind of big thing was we moved from Venezuela to Arkansas, my father really had enough of the big corporate stuff. He was an electrical engineer for the company, but he just didn't want to do that. He wanted nature, and so we got in the car. We came to U.S. back to U.S. and the road we came on by ship. This was a long time ago, mind you, and so we came by ship, and I was the only child on board. I was the only child on board. And so the captain gave me a birthday party as just a little thing, but it was just like kind of, an entrance to coming back to the States, which I'd never been to before. And so then we got in the car, we drove all around looking for a place, and we went into Arkansas. And when we got to Harrison, Arkansas, my father and mother said, "Oh, this is it. It's a little tiny town in Arkansas." And my father bought a dairy farm and a beautiful property on the creek. And that's where a lot of magical things happened for me. I think it was, close to maybe bases or whatever was going on there. And when I say a dairy farm, we had just a few cows, and my father played with the cows. He hugged them. He kissed them. I remember seeing out in the field, he's with the cows, and they loved him so much. They lined up for being milked, and they'd sit there and they'd be chewing their cud, all lying there. And when he'd open the door, the one that knew he was supposed to come in next would get up and walk in, just like in a dentist's office. So we had a very loving situation. Now dairy farms are like, but then it was just very loving and sweet. And he took care of all the cows and the calves, and everything was fine. But so at that time is when I had the experience that was really the watermark of the beginning. And that was, I had when I awoke the next morning, I told my mother it was a dream, but now I know it was an astral travel experience. And I was flying through the air, but I wasn't in Arkansas. I was in some desert terrain. And I'm 4 years old. Okay. I'm 4 years old, and I don't know. And we don't have TV, and we have to go a long way to get to the movie theater. We see movies once in a while, but I mean, I don't know desert terrain at 4 years old. Right. And so we're flying over this deserty mountain, like you'd see in Arizona, maybe. And I just go right in it. And inside.
Oh, no.
There you are. I'm suddenly with these beautiful men. They're, tall and Nordic looking, and have these tight-fitting white suits on, seamless suits, like jumpsuits. And they they're showing me around this underground facility, and they're just so beautiful and loving. And they talk to me as if I'm an adult, and they show me everything, and they explain the machines. There's these tall machines. When I say tall machines, they're computer towers. They're white, tall computer towers. This is 1954. Okay. So in those acts, but they're these computer towers, and they're explaining them to me, and I'm understanding everything. So when I get back, when I wake up, I can't remember any more than I'm telling you. I can't remember all those details, but I start drawing. I tell my mom about it, and I start drawing these pictures on. I should have gotten them out to show you guys on napkins with crayons, and I'm drawing what I saw. Well, I'm not doing a very good job of it. It's more kiddie drawing than anything, but what I say is important. For instance, one of them, I say, "This is a clock controlled by the mind." And there it is. And she saved it. She put them into the typewriter, and she typed what I said for each one. So I have them.
Oh, so Mom knew that this was special communication.
She did, and she just instinctively knew. She didn't make a big deal out of it. There weren't any programs to tell her about ETs or ultra-terrestrials or psychic experiences. There was nothing like that. Nothing. Yeah. But she just inwardly knew. And see, I come from a line of women. And my grandmother had incredible experiences, healing experiences, all kinds of things. She even healed her own heart. It was boot-shaped. And when they found out it was boot-shaped, she came back 6 months later and said, "It's not boot-shaped anymore." My grandmother didn't say anything when she walked out the door. She just looked at my mother and said, "Well, I've been talking to my heart." So, she had mystical, all kinds of experiences. And I'd be willing to bet if you went back on the matriarchal lineage, you'd find it more and more. So my mother was into that from just that organic perspective, not any outer stuff. Okay. So just accepted it. And so then, time advanced and things happened and interesting things happened, but that was kind of the big one at the moment. But when I was in high school, in my junior year, see, I never felt that I felt education was very artificial for the most part. I'm I was okay in kindergarten, but when I went in first grade, I was like, ugh, and I said, I just don't want to do this. My mother said, I'm sorry, it's the law, you got to go to school. And she even took me out at times and gave me had me do private tutoring when she could afford it, because I felt so strange, and it just drove me nuts to be in a school. But finally, finally made it to high school. And in my junior year, I put my hand on the school door to go into study hall to wait for the bell to ring. And when I put my hand on the door, I received, not in words that I could hear in my ears, but in very distinct words in my brain. They called my name, which was Christine at the time, and they said, Christine, if you go one more day, it will be dangerous. Now, it wasn't said in an alarming way. It was very soft and very firm, and I
Wow.
didn't feel afraid. I just felt, oh. So I turned around, I came back and got into the car, because my mother always waited for me to go in, not because she didn't trust me to go in, but she just giving me moral support. It was that difficult for me. I came back and I got in the car, and she said, what is it? And I told her. She looked at me for all of 3 seconds, really hard. And then she said, let's go home. And I didn't go back.
Wow.
I didn't go back because I was old enough then that I could drop out without legal problems. And so 6 months later, um, I was kind of depressed because now I didn't know what to do. Oh gosh, I'm a high school dropout now. I'm 16. What do
Right.
I do? Kind of thing. And so I was a little bit depressed. And so my mother said, "Well, here's this article in 17 magazine. It's not article. It's a short story contest." She said, "I know you like to write poetry. Maybe you could write a little something. Maybe fun." And I said, "Well, I'll give it a try." So I sat down at the typewriter, little old typewriter, and I looked, and all of a sudden, this something just came over me. I didn't go into a trance or anything like that, but something just came over me, and I just started writing. And I knew what I was going to write, and it just flowed. And I wrote about 4 or 5 pages, and I said, "Look what I wrote, Mom." And she looked at it, and she read, she says, "I don't think this is for 17 magazine." It was a tribe in Canada after the sky had turned gray. It's called Under the Gray Moon, and the sky had turned gray because something, the continent had sunk in the Pacific, and these were people in Canada and their whole life story. And it went just even the first 5 pages. My mother was like, and she said, "Where is this coming from?" And I said, "I don't know, but it didn't come from me."
Right. Right.
Wasn't automatic writing. I mean, I just knew it. I just blended with the field.
Right.
So there was no Google. There was nothing like that then. So my mother, especially my mother, I mean, she was so cool. She started researching. She went to libraries. In the mall, there was this little book stall in the center, and she went there, and she said she was just drawn over there. And she picked up this book that she was drawn to pick up, and it was James Churchward's book on Lemuria. They call it the Lost Continent of Mu. He had a series of them. He was not a channel or anything. He was a archaeological person, and he did a research on ancient languages. And he went to Tibet and all over and discovered that there were certain vocables, that's like parts of words, that matched to what he believed was the ancient lost language of Mu, the continent
Oh,
that sank in the Pacific. And when my mother looked at these vocables, she said, "Oh my God!" Because you put them together, they formed the names of the people of my tribe, the names of the cities of the everything. Like Kana Tachi, Kana meant high, and Tachi meant on a hill or something, and that was the city on the hill in my book. And it just went on and on. And so, and then she found Joan Grant's books on far memory books. She was writing about past lives. There was a lot out there, but there was just these few things. And we started reading that, and then we got hold of Edgar Casey. We read just a little bit of that, and I said, She said too, I'm tapping into the Akasha. That's what I'm doing.
right. Right.
But we didn't even know what that was until we started researching. And I said, well, if I'm doing that, I can write about anything I want. And I said, I've always been interested in science, so I'm just going to ask how the universe works. Ta-da!
Small thing
So
like
I
that.
did. And I started writing all this high science. A little high school dropout me, right? And so around this time, Edgar Mitchell, who was then an astronaut, was getting ready to go to the moon, and he was on some show, and he said, "Well, when I get back, I'm going to retire because I'm going to work in. I'm going to establish a parapsychological institute." He didn't name it at the time. I don't even think he had a name for it then. And when we heard parapsychology, that's the only word you ever heard at all, and you hardly ever heard that. So my mother said, "Let's write to him." So we did. And when he got back from the moon, he had to go into quarantine. And when he got out of quarantine, there was a whole stack, tons of mail for him. And he said he wouldn't ordinarily touch anything that, he didn't know who it was from. He'd have the secretaries handle it or whatever. But he said he saw the package that my mother had sent him of my work just sitting there. And he said his hand was just drawn to it.
Right.
He opened it up, read some of it, and he went, "Oh," and he called immediately. And then he had my mother and I, he paid for us to come out to Houston, where he still was. And we were in San Antonio at the time. So it was very convenient. And he would research me on several occasions. We came out there and he researched my work and whatever. And we talked back and forth on it. And he was getting a little frustrated because, well, first of all, he said to me that this was valid science. He said, but it's far beyond anything that scientists are working with at this time. Now they are, not then, not in 1972 or whenever it was. And so he, he would say things like something, and I would say, well, he said, but Chrystine, that's faster than the speed of light. And I said, yeah, I know. and he leaned over his desk because he was opposite me, and he had a red goatee. Then he went like this. He said, and he had I thought it was a Texas accent, but I guess it was New Mexico. I didn't know he was born in Roswell. But he rubbed his little goatee, and he said, "Well, Chrystine, the speed of light is no small potatoes." So I'll never forget that. So anyway, eventually, after 3 or 4 trips, he knelt down in front of me. I was sitting in a chair. My mother was next to me, and he said, "Chrystine, you're the most exciting thing I've come across so far in this work." He said, "But I can see that if I'm going to get anything out of this, the work and put it into formulas," that's what he wanted to do. He said, I'd have to drop everything else and work exclusively on that. And he said, "I'm not prepared to do that. I've already started my foundation and I've got all this going, so I just can't do that." So that's where we parted company. But, I was a little disappointed, but he continued to validate me, and it made me feel that I was really doing something genuine.
Yes, of course.
And otherwise I'd think, well, what is this? Maybe it's akashic stuff, but maybe I just have a real vivid imagination. I don't know. So that really helped me.
Say that he understood the science. I mean, the fact that he spent time with you multiple times and considered. The only thing I'm sad about is that he didn't turn you over to someone who could have done the next steps. That's the only thing. But
that was interesting. Well, what was especially interesting was the last time I worked with him before that happened, he had this other fellow come in, another scientist. And this other scientist was really an old Texas boy. You'd think he was out there behind the plow. You'd never know he was a scientist. I mean, he just talked like this, and he was a real easygoing guy. And we just said, and he and I just got on great together, and he understood what I was saying, and we were talking, and Ed Mitchell was sitting back like this, watching this. And I went, oh, at the time I had this little sinking feeling. And I just think that he got like, well, this is not a match for me. And I don't know why he didn't just turn me over to another guy or something. I don't know. But, he just didn't. And he moved on. But the last thing he said to me was saying, "I still believe in you. I still believe what you're doing, but I just can't handle it," basically.
Well, no, he had his life mission. I mean, he must have had a samadhi experience when he was up in space, when he saw the Earth, and he must have had a connection to his soul purpose, and that noetic science was his sole purpose. So
I think so. Well, and there was another thing too. We were all sitting at the table. I say we, his little group. He had him give me ink blot tests and stuff. These were just college kids, and they were the beginning of the Noetics Institute, I guess. And so they were sitting around the table, my mother and I, and I don't remember it was his house, or I think it was someone else's, because I think he just had an apartment. Anyway, we're all there, and someone at the table said, "Oh, about UFOs and." You know, have you ever, saying to Captain Mitchell, have you ever seen any? And blah, 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 blah. And Mitchell just stopped eating. He just looked at him. He says, I can't talk. I'm not going to talk about that. He got him left. He got him left the table.
Because he was probably not allowed to talk about it,
right? Of course, later, you know how it was. He became very vocal. But at that time, so then, I don't remember this came before or after that moment, but I was back home in San Antonio. I had a friend whose husband, who's no longer living at the time, had been in the military in Japan. And she and her kids had lived there in Japan with him. And he had some kind of a secret government thing going on, because he said he could never talk about what he did. So she didn't know what he did, but he was with the military. So after he died, they packed up and left, and they were in San Antonio, and she was a collector. She had everything Japanese you could think of, all these little kimono dolls and this and that. She has everything in there. And so one of the things she had was called dioramas. They kind of look like jack-o'-lanterns. They're just big old round like jack-o'-lanterns. They have faces on them and everything. They're supposed to bring good luck or something. And so she had and they were hollow for whatever reason, and you couldn't open them. They were all sealed. So she had a whole bunch of them, just tons and tons of them. So she started having this experience where she'd be at the sink washing dishes. She was in an apartment and on the first floor, and looked out, and there's this guy standing there just staring at her. And she's looking at him, and he's looking at her, and he just disappears. And he doesn't look like an ET. He looks like a regular man. She said he wore dark clothes. And she was having all kinds of Men in Black experiences. I can't remember all of them. She was freaking out and all of this. And I said, well, let me go to my sources, because I've been working with the ultra beings that had been appearing in my room and whatever, but I hadn't told Mitchell about that. So I went to them, and they said, well, her husband had took something that they want. And and he told him exactly which diorama it was in.
Oh my gosh.
What the big one with the red, or he described it, or what I received from the ultra beings. And so I went to her house, and I said, well, it's in that diorama right there. And she said, well, let's see. And she took a hammer and she cracked it open. Well, first we rattled it, and there was something in there. She says there's not supposed to be anything in there. So we cracked it open. There was this little silver cylinder about this big. And we said, well, what do we do with it? And message received, throw it away, get rid of it, put it in, take it out somewhere, throw it away, get it as far away from you as you can. She did, and everything stopped. She didn't have any more problems. So anyway, I told Mitchell, I decided to tell him, and I told him about that. And he just looked at me, and he leaned over and said, you tell them. I was supposed to tell all these beings, because he apparently lumped them all together. He said, you tell them, damn it, leave me alone. That's what I was to say to them. So at the time, he was lumping together all of it, like the ultras that were communicating with me and the ones that were, the whole thing. So that happened really just before also he decided to part ways. So I think that, I don't think he thought I was doing anything bad. It wasn't that, but I think he was told to leave all of that alone by what he was working with, and he was still under the thumb, and he thought, wow, this is, and I'm not making headway with her anyway, so I better pull back. But later, obviously, Mitchell was very open to all of this, and he did a lot of talks on it, and it was really beautiful. But he was very young then. That was a long time ago, and he was still sorting it all out, and he probably still had a lot of pressure on him from NASA, because he hadn't retired from NASA yet. He was going to.
Right. So okay, so you part ways with Edgar Mitchell, but you get validated, so I'm not crazy. Your mom knows you're not crazy. In fact, your mom goes, hot damn, let's go do this.
He was fabulous. Just about everything that worked well for me, that opened a door, she was the one that suggested it, or whatever.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
It was amazing.
people are saying that's an amazing endorsement. Hello, everyone. So we've got several people in here. I hope they'll ask questions so I can ask you questions. So you guys, please, you have good questions. But anyway, so Maya, keep going about because what's in it for the audience is that Maya has for I don't know 40 years.
52 actually.
52 years. She has been writing down and collecting the information for Earth for us to ascend and for us to come into our wholeness and remember. It's really a remembering, right?
Yes, indeed it is. It's the sciences and the ancient talk about ancient civilizations and things, but all of it really leads to understanding the ascension dynamics as a science, a spiritual science, because science can be used for various things by humanity, with good or ill, but science itself is a pure universal law. And if we follow that universal law, then we're in the groove, so to speak, of divine accord. And
Right.
it's only when people take it and try to manipulate it in what Thoth calls a half-light environment. He has the terms. I really need to talk about Thoth for a minute first.
Yeah, I was going to ask too. So I don't know if everyone in the audience knows who Thoth is, but Maya's gonna explain because she has a very intimate relationship with him. So
well, yeah, when I was working with the ultra beings, and they were appearing in my bedroom, they were appearing in my mother's bedroom. They were
cool.
asking to come into my bedroom, and they followed her in. I mean, we had experience. We could compare notes, what we saw that was very unusual when we were both with them. So I had the most experiences, but she did have certain experiences with me. So anyway, but they always communicated telepathically with me, and they told me right at the very beginning of all of this, which really started about 1968, their appearances and all of this, they told me that I had a mentor. They called him a benefactor, but I use the term mentor because it's a little more understandable these days. But that was with me, but I didn't know. I couldn't know him yet. I couldn't communicate with him yet. But he said soon I will be ready to be able to do that. Well, it was 10 years later, but in 1977 or 9 years later, I was introduced to him, so to speak, and it was Thoth. I didn't know a whole lot about Thoth. This was way before the Drinvalo stuff or any of that. This was, a long time ago. But I went to the library and read up on him. I think I had one spiritual book. Oh, and Manly P. Hall had something about it, and I had that book.
Okay.
So that's when I started communicating with him, and it's been that way ever since. I still have other sources that come through, but always through his agents, his direction. He is indeed my mentor, my benefactor. So he's my watchguard for all of that. And Thoth is a high illumined being. He had two incarnations as Thoth. Thoth is a title. He was Thoth Muzurud, originally coming from the blue star Rigel, and later he reincarnated into the planet, but with strong blue star Rigel genetics as Thoth Racemus of Afra. Thoth Muzurud wrote the plans, the diagrams for many of the ancient structures, including the pyramid complex Giza.
Right.
And then Thoth Racemus, when he came back as Racemus, this was after the deluge, or just during the deluge, and then after, and he rebuilt and brought that whole energy back to the Giza plateau.
I didn't realize that. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
I'm just telling you what I received. That I can't prove any of this stuff. Anyway, so when he began to work with me directly is when I really picked up in a lot of things that I received, a lot of different things. And so anyway, I was talking about, what was I talking about? I can't remember now. He speaks about the Ortron and the Metatron. I call it Thoth speak. he either makes up words for me, or he brings words we know, but he puts them together in different ways to express things, because there isn't any terms for it, otherwise. At least I don't know of any. So Ortron is the half-light spectrum, and Metatron is the full-light spectrum. And this is what we receive in our DNA, in our being, how our bodies form in light. It's all orchestrated. The whole planet is through a light embraiding, and embedding. So half-light is not bad. It's just not complete. And we exist in what he calls a world system 1, which is a half-light spectrum. Now we have moments of metatronic bliss, we all do, when it's just there and we're in a full life experience, but we are not living daily. Our world is not daily in full light. So the ascension dynamics, as he calls it, show us how to change that, how to experience more full light dynamic, how to be connected to your new earth star, as he calls it, embodiment in the world system 2. And you don't have to wait, because time is a linear thing we've created in the half-light realm anyway.
Right.
So experiencing all of this and feeling, but it's a very organic path. And as I explained on a video I just actually made yesterday, and it would be, if you go to my newearthstar.org and you click on the Nessia portal page, you'll find 2 videos there. One is just generally what you receive in my subscription portal, but the second one talks about how you integrate my work. And because it's kind of overwhelming, there's so much of it. I've been doing it for 52 years, and almost all of it, not all of it, but most all of it, is either there for free, but most of the rest of it is the prime stuff is in my portal, my subscription portal. Yeah. So get in the portal and you go, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I've had people say to me, I don't know what to do. There's so much, I want to see it all, but I just can't think about it right now. And then they just don't do it,
Overwhelming.
Right. So I'm the video is helping them to understand this, but in brief, I'll just say that it's about being your own teacher. I don't have courses. I don't have, things. Okay, you do this, you get, and then you go to this plan, and then you do this, and this is how you do that. It's not like that. It's pure streaming information and knowledge. It's like pure nutrients. Lots of pure nutrients. Mm-hmm. And the way you guide yourself through, Thoth is there for you. Anything that comes through his Akasha, his presence, his streaming, as I call it, because he's a high ultra being, his streaming comes through that. And you connect to that. You don't have to do anything fancy. You just enter it. You just feel it, allow it to happen. And as you do, he's literally your guide. It's like you're in this giant library, and he's literally saying, that scroll.
Right. Now, I feel like that's all of it. All of your work's been like that with me. I just get a tap, tap, tap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, and eventually what happens is you're synergizing with him so completely, and then he sort of steps back, and your higher self is your teacher. And that's the way it needs to be. So he's just bringing you into that, and then all of a sudden you don't even need the training wheels anymore. Your higher self, oh, that one right there, open that, Okay, and so it's not just for my work.
One thing. Okay, so Noelle and Bob said they think they met you maybe in Kauai at a water ceremony with Unity Grace in 2015. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Unity brought the Queen Crystal Skull back to me, and we had a wonderful ceremony there. Yeah, I lived in Kauai for 13 years, and I just moved back to Crestone, Colorado, where I lived years ago, in 2017. Yeah.
Right. Okay, cool. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to. Okay, so the other part I wanted to ask about, because I've been putting your website so that people can see, and if it's right for them, they'll know that that you're their teacher, and this information is what they've been looking for. That's
right.
Add the frequency where they can hold that frequency and remember and step into their own divinity. That's my hope with all of it. Now, the question I have is second life. So Maya, not only is she bringing in all this amazing work, she creates these beautiful programs on Second Life where she has avatars. They're all different beautiful beings, men and women, dragon, unicorns. I watched the New Earth Star Sanctuary last night.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Beautiful. The only thing is there aren't too many brown-eyed people in there. They're almost all light-eyed. Did you know that?
Oh.
Is there?
Well, they have plenty of brown eyes to choose from. I'll tell you, you'll find people using more light everything, but not too light, because in Second Life, dark doesn't show up real well. So a lot of people will use lighter, not but too light is bad too. I mean, if you have the really white skin, it's blinding. If you have the darker skin, you can't quite see it. It's just a matter of the way the Second Life works.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
more often we're going to find lighter hair and lighter eyes, so you can see it better.
Okay, so but they're exquisite humans. They're almost like what you think the inner Earth beings would look like, where they're taller and more um, perfect bodies but how did you fall into using Second Life?
Well,
Because
in
that's genius.
2008, I've always had health problems, but in 2008, I was at the bottom of the barrel for me. Had such bad colitis that I was not eating, and I was like down to 69 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was bad, and I thought I was maybe on my way out. And I saw on TV this little blurb about Second Life, and I saw that a person was a panther and they were going through the forest. And I went, oh my God. I was just sort of in my chair like this, and I could use my computer, and I kept doing my work, but I was hurting all the time. And so I thought, I got to do that. So I got into Second Life. And, I'd been doing all kinds of alternative therapy for myself, and I was taking intravenous vitamin C, and I was doing all kinds of things. And it was helping like that, but not enough. But when I got into Second Life, I started living again. I started being able to do things and be with groups, and I could have my own groups. And, and without leaving my chair fixing up or anything, I could just do it. And I could look gorgeous in my avatar body and all of this stuff. It was very primitive then compared to what it is now, but still it was really good. And it healed, not healed me completely, but it really brought me out of the jaws of death. I was a lot better. So that's how it started. But it just keeps growing and what I can do with it. And now I integrate it with my spiritual work, and it just fits perfectly.
Oh, it's genius. Honestly, you guys, that you have to look at this site and then I posted a URL for the New Earth Star Sanctuary video that's on YouTube. You need to see this, because once you see it, you will be mesmerized about the ease of activation you can get from it. This is not read 10 books, sit and ponder the world, go up to the mountains and sit on the mountaintop, blah, 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 blah. This is instantaneous activation where you're a facet, you're a fractal of a whole anyway, and your own life is a fractal of your own soul light, and somehow this kind of brings it in.
It does. And see, as I stated in the first part of the video that you're telling people about, my goal is to be able to reach people outside of Second Life with what's in Second Life, because for most people, getting into Second Life and really immersing yourself to where you're having those kinds of experiences is time consuming, and it can be financially consuming as well. Not hugely, but enough so that, and you've got to have a computer that does it, and, that's good enough, and all of this stuff. So, and a lot of people do that. There's thousands and thousands of people in Second Life. So I'm not putting off not doing it. But if it's not for you, this is a way to experience what I'm experiencing in there, because, and many people are, because it's also been proven they put electrodes on people's brains while they're in Second Life and other virtual worlds, but Second Life is the best. And they found out that people that the electrodes are telling you that you're doing those things, dancing, doing Tai Chi, doing yoga. The avatar is doing it, but your brain tells you, oh, I'm doing that. And they're also seeing, like, the Parkinson's Foundation has a huge presence in Second Life, because they bring their Parkinson's patients in, and these people, can not, but they can just barely use the computer, and they start getting better because they're doing these things. It's not only, of course, they can have group support in a very realistic way, but it's more than that. It's what they do, whether it's Tai Chi, dancing, whatever. Their body starts responding to that, and they're actually getting better.
Right. But you're using it to transmit energy and to elevate the collective. So it's a win, 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 win. It's beautiful, you guys. I mean, it's like the movie Avatar in a lot of ways, where you are in the jungle, or you're at the beach, or you're having nature therapy, watching the waves. It's quite amazing.
Do you know that Avatar, the movie Avatar, they actually studied Second Life?
They did?
That's where it came from, is what I've read. Is, I mean, that's not where it came from. Actually, the producer had this incredible dream about it, but that's where the how they decided to do it, how they decided to work it, because they put the electrodes all over the body, and that's how they created well, that's what they do in Second Life to create the beautiful movements that you get in dancing. The dances are so fluid and beautiful because real dancers hooked the electrodes up to his body or her body and done the dances, and then they sell you little chips of these dances, little seconds of it. You put it together in a HUD, and you yourself can create your dance by clicking the various aspects of it while the music is going.
Wow.
So you're the choreographer, but you've got the little dance bits that were created by people with electrodes all over their body.
Well, I don't know if I could ever, I would have to spend so many hours in there to try to figure out how to be as talented as you are on it. You are really amazing. And what the benefit is that this is kind of armchair. It's not spiritual bypassing, but it's much easier. Right?
It's what Thoth encouraged me to get more involved. I wanted to get in it for healing myself, but then Thoth encouraged me to get even more involved, because he said that virtual worlds, true virtual worlds, I'm not talking about games where people are killing each other, bam, bam, and people are falling over dead, but the virtual worlds that have an atmosphere that you can create in, so you can create what you want to in it, not just a game that you have to play. Those virtual worlds have the potential to create, if you're creating a beautiful atmosphere in a beautiful spiritual world, it's literally connecting etherically more quickly than if we're trying to do it physically here. Now, I'm not saying that things are better there than here, not at all, but I'm just saying that in that capacity of creating these beautiful dynamics that you're floating around in and you're doing all that, to do this in the real world so that you would have the same effect would cost millions of dollars.
Right.
Because the body, the mind, the energy self responds to beauty. It responds to immersive beauty, where you're immersed in it. You can go out in nature, of course, and hike the trails and get even more, of course, but this gives you a specific direction. It's very directional. It has specific things in it that come up at the specific times that bring these sequences in your heart, soul, mind together, so it's controlled in that way, but it's controlled to be able to help you move into a more spontaneous reaction to your soul self, actually.
Beautiful. So I do have a couple questions I wanted to ask, and then we're going to have to wrap up because we're going over. But is Thoth guiding you while you're in Second Life, while you're creating this, or are you taking the old things you channeled and putting them into this medium?
It's both. Some of the things are totally spontaneously new, and even the old work that I've done before. When I do sometimes in Second Life, but also just in voice videos, I will read my material, but I'm not just reading it. I'm stopping and pausing and saying, now from that 2019, I wrote this in in 1980, but I'm telling you now, this is that, and I'm bringing it up to date. I'm bringing it into the full spectrum because the work is still valid. I'm just bringing it forward. So I do that, and in Second Life, I do that as well. And sometimes it's entirely new material as well. Now, but this with the Second Life things, they're more the activational videos now, where people are in there, they're receiving knowledge, but they're receiving it in an activational format. You're going through a process. There's music, sometimes dancing, sometimes other things, chanting, whatever, and it brings you through a process. My more in-depth just information I do in videos. There's just talk videos. I have a splash screen, and I'm talking like I'm talking now, and I'm taking people through information, whether it's information I've already written or new stuff, but I'm talking about it spontaneously about that material.
So
if you
want to make sure how people know how to work with you, because you do private readings, correct?
Yes, I do private sessions on Zoom.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so would they go to this new earthstar.org to
yeah.
Okay.
On the first page, the minute you land there, there's stuff on the side panel too, but in really big print, you've got the portal to click on. You've got, my work, my offerings. You can go to that site and it tells you everything. And, you can just get in touch with me directly if you want to through Facebook. I mean, I'm there. So, whichever way they want to do it.
So are you optimistic about humanity? I'm getting more and more. I mean, I know we have high contrasts right now, but I'm getting more and more optimistic because at least in my world, I'm seeing more and more people waking up.
Yes, I am too. It's hard. It's difficult at times. You wake up in the morning, you go to YouTube, and there's all that stuff. And I do keep connected to it because I don't want to be, like I can't watch it. I want to be able to see it, but in a balanced way as possible so that I can, put the light into it, so to speak. But from the Thothic perspective, this is something we're having to go through. We built this house of cards, and we're having to go into that house of cards and find the card to pull. And when we pull that one card, the whole thing goes down. He speaks about. I just did actually one of my radio shows that I do on the archons. I called it the archons and all that jazz, but it's on the archonic energy and what from the Thothic perspective and how it works on the planet. And even though it's not a pretty subject, there's a lot of light in the bottom line, about what's happening here now.
But are we okay? So from another perspective, we're going from 3D to 4D to 5D. 4D still has some polarity. 3D's polarity city, school of polarity. 4D has some polarity, and then 5D, if using my terminology, I don't know if this is right, but that's what I use, is love and above, right? 5 and above.
Yeah.
And
use the D, but that doesn't mean he just doesn't choose to use that term, but he does speak about the movement, the spiritual movement of working toward this consciousness spectrum. He's saying first we have to have a heart ascension. We're not leaving the planet or leaving this spectrum until we have our own heart ascension. And so many people have it, then we're ready for the physical planetary realm that we're in to move into the world system 2 stage, which is a manifestational of full light spectrum stage. It's not the end of the end, but it's the first level of that full light spectrum. And we literally take what he calls the planetary genius from the center of this earth, which is where all the goodness is stored. All the higher consciousness that we created, that we worked with, is all stored there. And we take that with us. It's our signature. We take it with us to the next realm. So we're not leaving the earth behind. We're just packing it up and taking it to where it can really breathe free. Okay. And there's a lot about all of that, and you'll find it in my work. I'm doing something called guided to do something called the Tizo Protocol. And I have a site called the Tizo Earth Regenesis Project. You'll find all of
that last night too, and I didn't get through it all, but I'm not sure. It feels like you have to know a lot about it to understand. I watched one of the videos and I didn't get it.
Well, maybe I should redo the videos. But it's really, you can do the simplest level, which is just doing the protocol with a little card, every morning, just do your little protocol. You can do that. But for those who want to go deeper, there's all this deepness that you can go into, but you don't have to do that.
Right.
So, maybe sometime we should just do a talk about the TISO protocol and simplify it, bring it into more simple understanding.
Yeah. Well, if you have to understand, I mean, I don't know if I'm the typical consumer, probably not, but what I was trying to do is get enough information that if I could ask a question and I didn't understand it enough to answer.
To do it. Okay, well,
that's just me. That doesn't mean the rest of your people will be like me. But what I want everyone to get a chance to really see your work. You've been so generous with your blog all these years, writing down all of it, and then you do have this membership site where you can take your path and keep going through it to really upgrade and up level and activate your higher connections, and then you can also work with Maia. So you have all these different ways to experience this and benefit from her incredible connection. I mean, it's remarkable what she can do. So
thank you.
anything else you'd like to suggest for them? For anyone here? Is there anything else you'd like to suggest?
No, I guess not. You can just, if you go to my main site, I have a zillion other WordPress sites, and they're all linked into there. So you can go from one to another, and of course the portal. And the portal helps support me to be able to give all the free stuff too, so it's kind of important for me to have. And there is a lot in there. I have over 200 videos alone in the portal, and and I put more every month. So, there's a lot. And then there's also all of my back issues from the publications I did between 1980 and 1999, and they were monthly. So all in zip files, you have all those publications as well to delve into.
Right. And so I think that a lot of us feel that we have a huge connection to Egypt. At least I do. And I think a lot of people I work with do. And so right away when I saw it, I was just drawn in, like way in. So anyway, well, I think we're about over time. So we're going to have to sign off. We'll do this again. Okay. I thank you so much. And again,
you're most welcome.
Please connect with her and take advantage of this tremendous resource. You guys, you'll be so glad you did. Thank you, Maia.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.